Hey everybody, Omar here, the Knife Shark Guy, and I am back with another fun-filled video for you today. And today we're going to be taking a look at a topic in knives called trends. It's always kind of interesting to visit trends in the knife world, trying to find out what is it the knife companies are doing to get us to come back to buy knives, because they're certainly doing a lot of different things. Every year we all look forward to SHOT Show. Every year everybody's like gravitated to YouTube. Let's turn on YouTube and see what's going on with the SHOT Show, 2020, 2021, 2019, whatever. We can't wait to see the new knives that come out. What we're really looking for is something that's going to catch our eye, something that's going to get us to purchase the knife, to go, wow, I gotta get that knife. And what happens with doing that is that we all tend to get lost in the pizzazz of knives and the excitement of actually getting a new piece in our collection, but we're not really seeing what's happening. What is the trend? What's going on with the knife community that we're missing in all the excitement? So I thought I'd just do a video on this. It might be something you guys might want to consider thinking about when you go out and you purchase your knives. I know I think about it all the time. That's why I wanted to share this topic. So in front of you, you see three knives, right? This is a low, both of these two are like low value knives. I might as well add a fourth knife to this thing here. So yeah, let's see if you guys can get a shot of this. So these two are sort of budget knives. This is a high-end production folder. And then here's a custom. So why am I having all four different types of knives out? I'm trying to show what all these knives have in common and why all these knives rely on each other to sell. So let's take a look at some of these knives. So we're going to begin with the Kershaw Knockout. This is sort of, not the Kershaw Knockout, I want to begin with the Kershaw NORAD, actually. So the Kershaw NORAD is one of the very first low-budget folders. Now, if we take a look at this knife, if you were to go back 5-6 years, Kershaw, they were not producing knives that looked like this. Most of the knives, you could tell they had very little bling to them, probably not much flavor to them, because they were still trying to feel out the knife community. They didn't have a lot to offer because they weren't really sure what people wanted to have or what people liked. Now they have a little bit more information, what it is that we like. That's what SHOT Show is for, so people can share, express their opinions. And a lot of people's opinions went into this knife right here. A lot of people's creations went into this knife that you see. A lot of the things that were done on knives will wind up on a low budget folder at one point in time. I think that's kind of important to note. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about in a second. So there are certain things that people would consider to be a great knife. So first of all, let's look at the custom knife. Custom is supposed to be the ultimate experience in buying a cutting tool, right? Is it or is it not? I mean, personally, I don't think so. I mean, I went into this because I'm really not much of a user of knives. I like to look at knives as art and strictly art. But because I wasn't willing to spend the money at the time to get myself a really great custom, I had to actually walk through these steps. You know, you go through the value folder and then the high production and then maybe if being in this area here of your knife collecting, if something in here did not turn you off, this may be the next step that you go to. You may never. Who knows? Whatever. Everybody's different, right? But yeah, custom supposedly is the ultimate. Now, what's great is that there really is no ultimate when it comes to knife collecting, because everything you see here was built for a reason, and each one of these knives relies on the other knife that you're seeing in front of you. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's take a look at the Kershaw NORAD. Okay, we're talking about trends now, okay? It used to be 5-6 years ago when Kershaw came out and a lot of the other knife companies came out. When you saw a budget folder, it just looked like a budget folder. They were all pretty much the same. Using Kershaw as an example, Kershaw put out like a billion spring-assisted blades that some were different, some weren't. Some of them had knife designers attached to them. A lot of them were like this knife here, where it was just a general original company design. But nevertheless, all the knives seem to be, I'm not saying they were lacking in anything, but they didn't have much pizzazz. I mean, you bought the knife, you looked at it, you enjoyed it, you used it, promptly sold it, and moved on, right? So, and then what happened was that knife companies had to come out with more and more knives to satisfy the buying public, but they weren't really doing anything different. So they had to go on down the road somewhere and look and see what other people were doing. So they were basically looking at custom knife makers, seeing what they were doing, to try to see if they could produce a cheaper version of what a custom knife maker puts out. Now, putting that in mind, you have to keep in mind this knife is roughly, I think I paid $9.60 for this piece here. That is the ultimate in knife making. So basically what they were looking to do is to take some of the features on this knife, maybe incorporate in one of these knives. And that's exactly what you're seeing here. You're seeing this on this knife here. So let's go and take a look at it. So if we take a look at the custom knife, do you see anything on this knife that might be on any one of the knives over here? I do. What I see, and I'm going to put these two aside here for a second. What I see is flippers. Look at the flippers on these knives. They're practically the same, right? Somewhere down the road, I bet you someone from Kershaw, one of the general knife makers there, probably saw the design that J.D. Van Deventer created for his MIDI flipper and decided to put it on a Kershaw knife. Now, I don't believe that J.D. Van Deventer owns a patent on this flipper, but this seems to be on all of his knives. I mean, he is very, very famous in creating these discrete flippers. I'll show you here. This is my J.D. Van Deventer Palladium carbon fluted flipper. It has the same exact flipper on it. So this is basically his thing, right? The small, sort of discrete flipper that's not a pocket pecker. So here comes Kershaw. Maybe they were visiting SHOT Show, maybe they weren't, but somewhere down the line, someone saw this so badly that they decided, let's go ahead and put it on a folder and see if we can make it work. And bam, there it is. This would not exist on a Kershaw knife if J.D. Van Deventer didn't put it on his. Everybody, so basically what's happening here is you're now starting to see custom features on low budget knives. Can we take something on this knife that is a high art folder and make our low budget line something on it, create that same effect on our folder and make it our own? And that's pretty much what we're seeing right now on all the folders. So what's nice about this is that eventually you're going to be educated on everything. Even if you never ever even touch a custom or hold a custom or see a custom, there's something that is custom-like on your knife. There's something that is high quality on your knife. Case in point, like I said before, Kershaw, a few years back, all their knives were spring-assisted, okay? And then at the same time, they had ZT that had all of the KVT ball bearing system knives. So what happened was that the people that were into the low budget end knives or knife folders, they never got a chance to experience KVT ball bearing system because all they knew was spring assist. So, and if they wanted to experience KVT ball bearing system, they had to go and buy an expensive, over $200 knife to just, have that experience on their knives. This is going back like 7 years ago when they had the Kershaw Cryo. They were not producing any KVT ball bearing systems at that time in the low budget end. They saved that for their zero tolerance lineup. But they began to realize that the buying public wants to experience these things, and what a great way to promote their sister company, right? Why don't we go ahead and introduce KVT ball bearing system into these low budget folders, and maybe someone's going to be so impressed with this Kershaw NORAD and go, wow, is this what it feels like to have a high-end folder type like experience? I'm going to go ahead and buy myself a ZT. So what's happening here is, in the knife world, my opinion is that we're starting to close the gap where it doesn't really matter what you buy. Whether it's a low budget knife, whether it's a high end folder, whether it's a custom, these knives are going to all be related to each other in some sense. And I think that that's great. I think that's good. That's only going to move the knife company forward to do different things, to try different things. What it means is we're going to start seeing low budget end folders that operate fantastically like this. I mean, if you look at good close look at this knife, and I said it yesterday when I did the video, this is practically a ZT. All you need is to replace to make this ZT, all you have to do to replace it is to make the entire handle titanium, maybe upgrade the carbon fiber a little bit. And that's another thing that they're doing with knives. I'm going to put some of these away so you guys can see. You may even find an access lock somewhere down the road. They've actually had one, an access type lock, because this access lock was actually invented by Benchmade. The patent ran out, so now you've got other companies. I think Steel Will has a knife. It's not called an access lock. They call it something else, but it's the same effect as the access lock. And their knife only cost, I believe, $80 or something like that, versus $412. And you don't have to spend that much to experience this, is what I'm saying. You don't have to spend that much to experience the access lock if you want to experience it. So back to my original thought. Knives are beginning to intertwine for pretty much good business reasons. This is the Kershaw Knockout. This is another thing that people look forward to in the low budget category, where knives are starting to cross over and become something else. Kershaw Knockout. The original was in aluminum scales, also spring assisted. The blade was 14C28N Sandvik steel, original Knockout. Here we've got an all carbon fiber knife. Carbon fiber is normally found on what, folks? Custom knives, maybe some high-end production knives, but definitely on custom. So that idea came from somewhere, probably came from a knife designer somewhere down the line. They're now all coming together to let everybody experience everything. So now we've got carbon fiber on a low-end knife. Not only is this a carbon fiber knife, but now they've upgraded the steel. You're not stuck with Mauve 13 or Sandvik even. You can get a low-budget folder, well, not really a low-budget folder, but you can compromise on a folder and get something that was once low-end, and they'll turn it into a high-end knife, and you still don't have to spend $412 for that experience. In this case, this knife has only cost me like $129, right? You've got all carbon fiber on there. You've got an M390 blade. There was a time when you literally had to spend $400 to get an M390 blade on your knife. Not anymore. There are a ton of knife companies out there. You've got Kaiser doing it. You've got Steel Will doing it. You've got, I believe, CRKT is doing it. Everybody's doing it now, where they're taking these high-end steels, putting them on a low-budget knife, and compromising somewhere else for the value, just so you can experience one part of a custom knife somewhere on a low budget knife. And I think that's great, because you're never going to get to experience this entire thing until you reach this level. But what's wrong with putting blue carbon twill on a low budget folder with like CPM 154? What's wrong with putting marble carbon fiber on, say, a low budget knife that costs like $62? They can do it. They'll compromise it someplace else. So carbon fiber seems to be a very, very flexible and not necessarily as costly of a custom material as some other materials. And I think maybe not custom, but knife companies like Zero Tolerance are starting to see that. This is just all my opinion. They're starting to see that. So what they're doing is, they're trying to put the main material, let that main material pop in your eyes so you can see what it's like to experience that. And then they'll start making more. At the same time, they begin to start making more and better folders. So if you take a look at the carbon fiber on this knife, on this knife here, so you've got that sort of reflective material. You don't get much of it, but it's there. And that is a custom material, carbon fiber. Now, granted, you look at this knife, yeah, the carbon fiber is like glued onto the knife, right? Versus it actually being on the knife. They've taken a piece of that material, but they want you to see the material, how it's used, and how it, what the aesthetics are like to have on the knife. And it works, because they're not, it's not like it's a trick or anything. They just want you to see, they want you to experience it, because maybe they're going to do something with this material on a very special knife, on maybe an exclusive knife or a limited sprint run knife. And so what do? That's what they did with the Knockout. I mean, take a look at the carbon fiber. This little bit of carbon fiber wound up on this knife, right? The entire knife, guys, is made of this material, with the exception of the subframe lock here, right? But the entire knife is made of this material. Now, if you were to look at this knife, what's eye-catching about this knife is we know it's not a custom, right? It's a low-budget to mid-line knife, or middle-of-the-road knife that feels like custom for a whole lot less. Now, granted, you're never going to experience this. Obviously, it does not compare to this, but there is some aspect of a custom in this knife. And that is what I wanted to get to, which is the reason why I'm doing this video, so I can show you that the knife companies are only going to get better and better and better and better at what they do. They're going to start mixing and matching, trying different things, but it's no longer going to be that cheap Zytel anymore. They know Zytel ain't going to do it for us anymore. It's not going to be the, like that plastic material. It's still on some of the knives that you see on some of these low budget folders. Maybe someday they're going to actually have real G10 or something on the low budget, folder that's not a compromise, just so you can get the feel of a custom material, because eventually all the knives are going to start closing the gap. Now, what's interesting to note about that is simply this. While all these knives that you see here have a lot in common as far as the materials that are being made, it is my opinion that we're never ever going to get to the point where all these three knives are going to be just come one knife and, it doesn't make a difference. It's all the same thing. That's never going to happen. Why? Because the knife designers that are pushing the industry, okay, they're going to come out with more brand newer materials, probably a little bit more exotic and a little bit more way out there, that they're just never going to see that stuff on here, on these low budget folders. Case in point, this is my Andre Thorburn one of a kind front flipper. Now this material here is called White Westinghouse micarta. It's a very, very rare material to be put on a knife, and yet it's on a custom piece. Do I believe this material is ever going to wind up on here? I don't think so, because this knife is just, the material is just way too rare, and it's only fairly exclusive to South Africa. You might see it on some American customs, but granted, this material is just too rare, making it way too expensive for other knife companies like Zero Tolerance and CRKT to have access to. So if you're worried about, well, why should I even bother to get into a custom? Why would I even buy customs? No, that's not the deal. You're still going to want to buy customs, because you're going to see some stuff that's really, really high-end material that you will never ever see wind up on these low budget folders. So the separation between a high production knife, a midline knife, and a low budget folder is still gonna be there. What I'm saying is, what's driving the industry is that these materials like carbon fiber, which are now becoming more and more common and more found on the low budget end folders, are going to be part of the lineup now. They're going to become common. What's going to happen is that these guys are going to be like, okay, people are getting kind of tired of seeing carbon fiber. I'm going to go ahead and try blue twill, carbon twill on there. That stuff's kind of expensive, and they can jack the price of their knife up now. custom knife makers will do that now, where they find some really rare material. Well, look, this is like dog bone or something. They'll put it on the knife, and then the next thing you know, they'll jack up the price. However, the quality and the performance and the cutting tool aspect of the knife will probably never go away. So, case in point, you will see knives look better, perform better, get better, because the knife trend is only going to continue to get better with the interaction of each of the categories, high-end, low budget, and custom, producing an almost custom-like knife. This is Omar, the Knife Shark Guy, signing off. I hope you found this video fairly interesting. Like I said, this is all my own opinion. Please feel free to comment below. Yeah, I would love to hear your opinions on this subject as far as materials crossing over into different levels of knives, whether it's a high-end knife, whether it's a low-end knife, a high-production knife, or a custom. I want to hear your thoughts on that. What do you think? Do you like that idea? Do you think it's all just, well, they're just trying to, pull a fast one on us. They're just trying to get a buck or make a quick buck. Or do you really believe it's driving the knife community to make better and better knives? I personally believe that it is a combination of all of those things, of knife companies and custom knife makers getting together and creating something, or creating a community where everybody will be introduced to everything sooner or later, and they're all going to help each other out. I mean, knives are just going to get better in that sense. It's kind of like, where we stand behind a cause. It's like heaven here, like the COVID-19 we're all dealing with. Not too much news on violence these days, right? Because of that. All of a sudden, everything just stopped because of the COVID-19. But my case in point, it's working towards one common goal. High-end knives, low-end knives, customs, to make better and better products. With integrity, put it that way. We're not compromising on quality in any one of these forms, whether it's a low-budget knife or a high-quality folder. They're trying not to do that. I think lately they've been very, very successful. And, it just gets much more and more interesting, but the idea of a tool, the idea of crossing over a tool with art is starting to happen now on a lot of low-budget folders, and I think that's great. So, this is Omar the Knife Shark Guy signing off, hoping you'll find some awesome crossover material in your low-budget featured knife that you love so much. I bet you will. Yeah, you guys stay safe out there. Hope this has been an interesting video for you. Please leave your comments below. I can't wait to hear from you on this topic of knife trends. This is Omar the Knife Shark Guy signing off. And you guys stay safe and God bless.